Hello, my name is Jonathan Raspberry, and this is my first video on YouTube, which is pretty cool. This video is going to be the first in a series of videos entitled Our Chess Games. And by Our Chess Games, I mean games that you and I typically play. Now, I figured most people on YouTube are going to be between the ratings of 1200 and 2000. And the reason, or sorry, 1200 and 2200 below master. The reason why I say this is because masters, international masters, grandmasters, while they are on YouTube sometimes, they often spend their time on something like chess.com or ICC, honing their skills by studying with the grandmasters, with strong masters, international masters, and they'll often spend time actually making videos on YouTube. So the audience is dwindled down. If you're a master, then great. I'm glad you're listening to this, but this video is intended for players 1200 to 2200. The reason why I'm staying with 1200 and not going from beginner to master is because below 1200 it's all about not making blunders. Whoever can blunder less. So I figured this would be helpful for players between the ratings of 1200 and 2200. Mine personally is 2000. That's why I say our games, because I'm part of this right now. My game, I get to look at my games a lot and look at all my mistakes that I make. And through doing so, I've actually been able to learn a lot. And been able to actually learn more than watching Grandmaster games. And that is why I wanted to bring games that are from our level, from the 1200 to 2200 level. And I wanted to present them to you and hopefully teach you something that I've learned through this game. And then maybe that you can learn something from it, and maybe you'll be able to recognize mistakes that you commonly make. Maybe you'll be able to avoid mistakes in the future because of what you learned here. So I just hope that you can learn from this game, and maybe also learn how to study your games. And after you study your games, trust me, you will get better because you'll see your mistakes and you'll be able to fix that. So this game is actually going to be played between, let's see here, it was between an 1800 and a 1900, and it's a pretty interesting game. So let's go ahead and start. E4. All right, E4. There we go. All right, so Black plays C5, the Sicilian, knight f3, and here Black plays B6. So, what do you think of B6? Does it scare you? Well, B6 is not that good of a move. It's been played a couple of times before, and by a couple I mean a couple. It's not that popular. And B6 is not an attempt to refute your opening repertoire. It's not an attempt to make you look silly. B6 is an attempt to throw you off, and you have to know that. When your opponent plays some strange opening, in fact, the last tournament I played in a game, or in an opening as black, that I had never seen before. It got weird quickly. But I was able to play classically and ended up getting an advantage in that game. And this is how white gets an opening advantage. And so when you see a move like B6, don't get scared. If your opponent is really that good, then they're going to win anyway. But more than likely, your opponent is doing this to try to scare you, try to get you out of your opening book. But to this I say, play classically, and you will do just fine. By classically, I don't necessarily mean don't avoid the like bishop g7, the g6, knight f6 stuff. You know, I'm saying play whatever the line that you're playing. Play the standard stuff in that line. So in this case, what does white normally do? d4. All right, standard Sicilian d4, cd4, knight e4, bishop d7. What does white do? Standard knight c3. a6. That's kind of normal. For the not order. Normally, though, the bishop is not on b7. The pawn is not on b6. So bishop e3. Continue playing standard stuff. e6, and now white kind of sort of throws away his opening advantage. Black has played a very bad opening. Alright, let's look at it for a second. This dude over here is useless. He's threatening this pawn over here on e4, but as you know, and as is going to be played in the game, f3 just completely blunts this bishop out. Later on during the game, actually, it becomes a hindrance to Black's attack. This pawn structure is not good, and he's only got one piece developed. From the White's point of view, he's got standard development going. He's got 3 pieces developed. He's about to develop the 4th. The queen is about to come out. King's gonna castle. Either way, he's doing good. The problem is, when you have a lead in development, the last thing you want to do is you want to play a passive move, unless you've calculated that you're going to keep your advantage. All right. Black or White played a3 here, which is a very, I mean, it's an okay move, but it's kind of, from a principle standpoint, an error. An error for a 1200 to 2200 rated player. If it was played by a grandmaster, it'd probably be considered a blunder. Maybe not a blunder, but for our level, it's missing an opportunity to take an advantage with instead of a3, bishop d3. Let me show you. A lot of players are scared of bishop b4, but let me just prove to you just how big of a advantage one can have when they have a lead in development. Bishop b4, castles. Bishop takes c3. You're like, no, Jonathan, I don't want to have double pawns, especially if they're on an open file, right? Well, sadly for you, you're going to miss out on a very big advantage, because if you don't allow your pawns to be doubled like this, if you go back, actually, if he doesn't take, which is probably a good idea not to take, then you still have a lead in development. But if you allow this, you get an even bigger lead in development with e5, queen g4, bishop g5. All this is basically forced. Queen c7, c4. If you want to throw an h6, you can. And then Black's knight's going to move, and you're going to take over the f6 square. And the king's not going to be able to castle. The h pawn's going to become weak. Dark squares are going to become weak. You've got the 2 bishops. What weak c pawn is there? That bishop is defending it very well. You've got a very good game. I don't see White having any trouble. He's up 2 pawns according to the computer. If Black, however, tries to place g5 in this situation, saying, okay, look, after you move, I'm going to play this, as the computer shows here, this knight f4 idea. You're going to say, nope. I'm going to take here, and then I'm going to take here. You know what? After d takes e6, I'm going to play queen g7, and I'm going to end the game with knight e6. Alright, this is what a lead in development can do. Obviously, you can't take back because the queen is hanging. In this position, White was afraid of this move. And to tell you the truth, I have, in times past, and I sort of still do, have a fear of these double pawns. Look at this. They look horrible. But because you and I are often blinded to this just horrible looking pawn structure. I mean, imagine you take off these 3 pieces here, the queens and the rooks. Now keep on one minor piece, take off the queens and the rooks. Who's going to win the endgame? Black. Alright? We're not in an endgame, and we're not anywhere close. And so in this situation, White says, look, I'm going to do some concrete calculation. I am going to give myself double pawns, and I'm going to play e5, taking an advantage. Queen g4, stopping him from castling. Obviously, if he castles, you've got bishop h6. g6, bishop g5. I'm going to play c4. I'm going to continue to attack him, and then hopefully he'll mess up. Oh, even if I don't mess up, the computer still gives white about a 2-pawn advantage here. Even if he doesn't mess up, you're still doing well, and you can flex your muscles. But in this case, just a simple 96 is just overwhelming. So white was blinded to this. He saw the doubled pawns. I'm guessing, and played a3. And a3 h3, it's often played reflexively before you even have the opportunity to pin the knight. People are afraid of bishop to g4 to g5 to b4 to b5 respectively, for knights and bishops on the queen side and king side and queen side. They're afraid of these pins, and they just don't even have to deal with it. But often making a move like a3 throws away your advantage. Now white's only got about a half pawn advantage. He's still got a good game. Don't let me change your mind on the fact that all of a sudden he's worse or something. But no, white is still fine, but he missed his opportunity, right? So don't be afraid of getting pinned. If you see your way out, like in this position, I can look and say, okay, bishop. Let's say if I say his threat is to play bishop to b4. If I go knight, which means my e-pawn's going to be weak since that's going to be pinned. Let's say I play bishop d3. Okay, what happens after bishop b4 though? Because I'm going to get double pawns, right? If I castle and he takes back, then is when you start to notice, oh look, I have 3 pieces developed. He's got 1. I'm coming to g4 very quickly. His b6 pawn is weak. When you start to be able to notice that, you start to be able to get over the double pawns problem. But a3, we're going to continue on with the game. a3, queen c7, queen d2, knight f6, f3. This is why I said this bishop is particularly useless. Knight f6, sorry, knight c6, castle's queenside, knight e4, bishop d4, e5, a nice little move, bishop b3. And here black makes a natural move, and one that you would probably often make, d6, right? Okay, that's what you normally play in this Sicilian, right? Play e5 and d6. Well, the problem is black was afraid of having a weak d7 pawn, my guess is, because of bishop g5 is coming. Again, this kind of weird problem with the bishops pinning the knights. Of course, he's not pinned, but he's kind of defending this guy. If the king ever castles, say the bishop comes out on the road to e7, this guy goes here, he can't really castle because the d7 pawn is hanging. So d6 makes sense. But the problem is, this guy is now blocked. He can't attack on the king side. The d6 square is still weak, and the d5 square, of course, is still weak. And he's missing an opportunity, just to simply play rook c8 to develop, try to read level the plane here. But with rook c8, he is putting pressure on the c file. He's developing. He's doing good. But with d6, he's actually blocking development. He's blind to the fact that white has a huge advantage because he's ahead in development. He's castled. He's got 3 pieces out, and after he can either develop a 4th piece and be ahead 2 tempos with the castle and say the bishop, or he can start an attack immediately because obviously black's king can't go queenside or stay in the center. So after king b1, which is what white played, which is actually a very good move. Just getting off this c file with tempo because he sees that black can't really do anything. After bishop e7, he missed his opportunity to get another advantage with g4 and attack. Go at him. Alright, with a developmental advantage. And I say a developmental advantage because right now the king isn't castled. Sure, 4 pieces out well, you can include this rook. 4 pieces out to 4 pieces out. But with this situation, this kind of discourages him from castling, which is very important. Say normally like rook c8, g5. Knight h5 is not possible because of bishop h3 attacking the rook, and then bishop g4 attacking the knight, and the knight can't go anywhere. Knight d7. And after h4, obviously now you don't want to castle at all, h5. And if you ask who's ahead in the attack, you'll say white every time. He's way ahead in the race. And this is what I missed. This is what I've often missed because I'm a rather conservative player. I like to make sure things are perfect before I start an attack. In this case, no, go after the attack. Your head in development, the king is in the center of the board. Go at it. And this is why d6 was a simple mistake. It didn't lend itself to any developmental advantage. The bishop is trapped here on e7. It's completely useless. If the pawn was back on d7, you might have some options of eventually pushing these pawns and maybe creating a target on a3, but there's no target on a3. So now, what do you do? What do you do? Well, as black, you don't have anything. You really don't. There's no pawn pushes. You can't ever play a5 and b5 because as soon as you play a5, b5 is going to be weak. d5 is a big hole. What advantage does black have? He has none. What does white have? White has a huge space advantage. He's going to have a lead and develop permanently because the king can never castle, which means this rook is going to be trapped. This rook is technically developed now because he's on a fairly open line. And so missing this was a very serious mistake from white's point of view here. And we go back, play bishop g5, which is kind of weird, going after this kind of bishop knight thingy. Bishop g5, obviously he wants to secure this square for his knight. The problem is there's always a bishop here. So while it's not a bad move personally, as you can tell, tempos, attack, so key in a game like this. When you're ahead, especially the Sicilian, if you're gonna play Sicilian, you gotta be willing to play g4, h4 to start the attack immediately. You can't sit around and play h3 and weird h6 moves. All this stuff, you've got to go at him now. And so I just wanted to really emphasize this at that point, because this is the first part of this game. It's all about tempos. At least that's what we can learn from this game. But now we're going to transition into more of a second interesting topic, which is going to be the queens and rooks topic, the heavy pieces. But let's talk about that when we get there. Bishop g5, rook d8, bishop f6, bishop f6, knight d5, bishop d5, queen d5, b5, h5, h4, finally deciding to go after the attack. c8, rook d2. Obviously, you can't take this d6 pawn because, well, in this case, because c2 is hanging. So rook d2, bishop e7, defending g3. I would have gone g4 just because I like the attack, but g3 is a little bit more solid, and maybe start threatening to play f4 eventually and try to bust open the center. But castles, bishop h3, attacking the rook. Always ask what your excuse me, what his threat is. Rook b8, rook d3. Threat is rook c3. So here we go, entering the second phase of the game, and this is where actually black has good chances to win. b4, opening up. This is what white has been failing to do. He's been failing to attack black, and now he has nothing. His advantage is totally gone. a4, rook b4, the computer gives it as negative 0.07, so all advantage for white is completely gone. But now white's the king. White's king is the one that's starting to be a little open, a little airy. He's the one that's going to have to start to defend. Rook a3, attacking the pawn. Rook fb8, just attacking b2. Queen a2, and this is a moment where black should have seized his attack. Should have gone for this very interesting d5 move. And if he had gotten this move, and obviously he's threatening rook takes b2, queen takes b2, rook takes b2, king takes b2, and then this guy's hanging over here to the bishop, and then after the trades you're just add material. I'll let you work that out if you want to do so. In this case, white's really only got one move. If he goes rook takes a6, then he just loses to a fork. Oops, there goes the rook. So rook d3, instead of takes a6, play d takes here, just to mess up the pawn structure a little bit more, to prepare a queen versus two rooks game. So let's analyze this for a second. Two rooks versus a queen. When to do it, when not to do it. I often prefer two rooks versus a queen because I have, chessically speaking, I've grown up knowing that two rooks are worth more than the queen. But when are they worth more than the queen and when are they not? Very often are they equal. Often one has an advantage over another. In this case, black is just completely better for a number of different reasons. The queen has an advantage when the king's safety is bad for the opposing side. The queen has an advantage when the opposing side's pawn structure is fractured. And the queen has an advantage, at least a temporary advantage, when the coordination of the opposing pieces is also lacking. So all this added up to say that black has a big advantage. When the king is open, the queen can often come in and start an attack really quickly. Obviously, there's a lot of checks here. The bishop is going to help come in and actually create some mating threats. While white, on the other hand, doesn't really have mating chances. In fact, after say something like a5, rook b1, this is, oops. After rook b1, say something like g6, and now white has no attacking chances. Maybe eventually if he can get his pieces to the 7th rank, that's not going to happen for a long time because black is going to, according to this, black has a 2.5 pawn advantage because of king safety. In fact, the top move they're suggesting is king c1. And that's the only move that gives black. Now it's saying 2.7 pawn advantage. Just getting worse. The point is, white's king is in the open, and black's going to start to create some threats, alright? And whether you want to believe me or not, what you need to understand is that queens can operate in weird ways, alright? Rooks operate up and down, left and right. Queens, though, they can get into positions, they can get under your skin very easily. In fact, possibly a threat here is the computer says queen b7, picking off that pawn, using the lateral, the horizontal, and the diagonal strengths of the queen in just one move. Also, possibly checking here is a threat. And the king comes over here. We've got checks over here on c1, and then playing queen over here to h2 to attack this guy. That may not necessarily be as good, but still, the queen is too good. Alright, you have to believe me that the queen is too good. If you don't, you're gonna get burned. Alright? Now, when are two rooks better? Two rooks will beat a queen 9 times out of 10 when the pawn structure for the side of the two rooks is solid and when the king is safe. When the king is safe and the pawn structure is solid, then the two rooks can systematically go around and eat pawns. Imagine you have rooks here and here, you're attacking this pawn and this pawn. Even though the queen is defending both pawns, it's 2 versus 1 both ways, both the pawns are going to fall. Or at least one of them is, if he defends the other one with his king or say pawn. That's where a rook has an advantage, or at least two rooks, because it's 2 versus 1. You can attack some sort of weakness with a double attack, while the queen can only defend at one time. And then also when the king is safe, of course, you don't have to worry about getting checked too much. So that's good. But in this case, as I said, nothing is working well for white, and he's just worse. Alright, so that's the first thing I think we can learn from the second part of this game is do not trade 2 rooks, or do not allow your queen, I guess, if we're looking at this from white's point. You don't allow your queen to be traded for 2 rooks when your pawn structure is bad, when your king is open, when your pieces are not well coordinated. And we're going to continue with the second part of this game. Remember, he didn't play d5. He actually played queen b6. We're going to continue with the second part of this game with looking at another example in this game of 2 rooks versus a queen, and it's a few moves down the road, so we're gonna go off onto a different topic really quickly. After queen b6, b3 was played. Queen e3, threatening f3, and as the computer so nicely points out, rook takes a5, lands rook b3, and then after pawn takes b3, rook takes b3. The king's gonna get mated. So rook f1. And here black again missed d5. Let's look at this for a second. d5. d5, e takes d5. If he moves his rook, as I showed you before, he's going to get mated with rook takes b3. E takes d5 with, say, rook 4 to b7 or something like that, attacking the rook. The rook's forced to move, and then you, well, it's actually, in this case, he's not forced to move. In fact, he can't move because he loses to this line. Just king a1 gets mated with queen c3 checks after king c2. Something like queen c3, king c1, rook c3. You're just totally gonna get destroyed. So d5 would have been a very good move. According to the computer, you've got another about 3 pawn advantage. And this comes from tactical knowledge. What I would suggest for you guys is to study tactics. Seriously, look at lots of tactics. Go with them over and over and over. And you will become a stronger player. Because you'll see stuff like d5 and you'll be able to win the game very easily, like I showed you. But instead, you have to continue on. And in fact, black loses this game. Spoiler alert. Queen e2, rook a6, queen h2, trading pawns here. h5, h6, king e2, queen d2, rook a1. Here black plays bishop g5, which again, this is his last chance really to play d5. After he takes d5, it goes on like e4 and f5. Very important moves. f6, bishop f6 is coming. You've got rook takes b3 eventually. And in fact, here white's just completely lost because after bishop takes f5, you got rook b3 and queen f3, forking king and bishop. So, again, d5 is a tactical shot that we're not going to say as if we were looking at a Grandmaster game. Oh, he just missed this. No, we're going to look at why he missed this. And the reason why he missed this is because he was not well versed in the tactics. Alright, he may be a good tactics player, but you can always get better. Grandmasters demonstrate this all the time with incredible tactical battles, and often what you don't see is moves that are completely normal that are only justifiable by tactics, and that's what they do so often. To help win games, you know, they may play a strategic move based on tactics. They can do it because of tactics, and so that's why this guy wasn't able to win, because he wasn't as well versed as, say, a Grandmaster was. If Grandmaster was playing this, I can tell you he would have seen d5. Actually, he would have seen d5 earlier. So, what I would suggest to you, study tactics and combinations. Learn to see them and learn to get a sense for them. And you will be able to play moves like d5 a lot more. At least a lot more often. Alright, bishop g5. He's completely given up his d5, but that's okay. He's still winning according to the computer, 1.5 pawn advantage. Takes d6, bishop e3, rook a d1. And here, As we said earlier, rook takes b3 was good. In this case, it's not. It throws away all his advantage. Rook takes b3, queen takes b3, rook takes b3, king takes b3. Notice the pawn over here is pinned, thanks to the well-placed queen on g2. So we got rook takes b3, king takes b3, king f8. Now, I'm not going to spend very much time on this, but to end the second part of the game, we're going to take a look again at two rooks versus queen. Pawn structure, much more solid. This guy is now becoming an asset. It's actually a passed pawn. Black is up a pawn, or white is up a pawn, because he's got 10 pawns in the two rooks to 9 pawns in the one queen. But again, this pawn structure is very solid because thanks to this bishop. You've got one weakness, and that's the king is wide open. Otherwise, you are golden. White's rooks are well coordinated. The c pawn is going to go up the board, and the king will eventually find safety. So let me demonstrate. Let me prove that to you. Rook d8. Black is forced to run away. He goes rook takes f7. It's still even according to the computer, but I'm not so sure about that. It's not a very easy position to play. Queen to f1, rook g7, king h4, rook d5. Very well coordinated pieces. Bishop d4, rook g6, just threats all over the place. And now the question is, does black have enough checks? Let's find out. Alright, I'm taking keeping a close eye on the engine, making sure that he doesn't blunder. So far, no blunders. All green lights. All green lights. Okay, so far so good. So far so good. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Queen c8. Queen c8 was the move that the computer tags as the blunder. It was saying it was even, but I can tell you, back in this position, the computer is not strong enough to calculate the fact that black is actually winning. That white is actually winning. Golly. Too tired. Queen b1. The computer again saying dead even, dead even, dead even, then blunder. And the move that it called dead even in this situation was queen b8. And after studying that line for a second, I found out actually that the computer reversed this decision. Right now, giving black or white about a half pawn advantage. Given another second, and boom, it just popped up. It just popped up to a full pawn advantage. Granted, there are other lines, but it's just too hard for black to keep checking white. He keeps trying his best. In this case, he understands that a check is going to do absolutely nothing. Just king h7. So he finally gives up, tries to create some counter chances, defending. Nothing's happening. The game is over with. And it's all thanks to a bad decision with the two rooks and the queen. He made two bad decisions, or at least missed one of them. His opponent should have made one. And he made a bad one. Or sorry, black missed one and then made a bad one. And so what I would encourage you to do to learn from this game, notice this is not a grandmaster game. There were plenty of errors from both sides, which means there's plenty of things that you can learn from, plenty of things I can learn from too. But what I would take from this game is learn when to trade two rooks for the queen. Sometimes you're forced, okay, I know that. But learn when it's a good idea and learn when it's a bad idea. And then try to maybe, give your opponent the chance to trade two rooks for the queen when you've got a really solid pawn structure and you've got a very safe king. Or seek a queen for two rooks trades when you know that his pawn structure is just completely shattered. For those of you who are on the lower rated end of the 1200 scale, or maybe you're actually below 1200 just watching this video because I don't know, because you're above your level or something. You can get this from any level. You can learn from this game at any level, but maybe you're watching this game and you're thinking, man, I mean, I just don't understand, man. The queen is the queen. Jonathan, I think just the queen is powerful, just too powerful. Well, I hope maybe that you can learn to overlook maybe that presupposition the queen is all powerful. Maybe that you can start to say, well, look at this game, look at how the two rooks just dominated the queen. And hopefully, maybe you can start practicing this. Set up a position against your computer and play two rooks versus a queen, and or let your computer outplay you with two rooks versus a queen, and learn how to use the two rooks. This is a great example of the two rooks for the queen. This is also a great example of the earlier theme that I wanted to talk about real quickly before we ended this video. The theme of having a advantage in development and not using it. Black played crazy in the opening. Well, not crazy. He played pretty badly though. All right. And white really just messed up. He didn't take advantage of black's chances that he gave him. The move A3 was the mistake that a lot of players, including myself, as I said, would have played when the presupposition of double pawns isolated on an open file just completely overruns your thinking. And maybe this game will help you to realize that not all positions, a lot of them are, but not all positions are bad when you have doubled isolated pawns. It's very interesting. And so let me know what you think. This is, as I said, my first video, so this is crazy rusty. Not very good presentation. But let me know what you think about this. Let me know how I can get better. This is the Our Games series. So if you want to send me your game, like send me a link to it or something. Don't send me a link to like some random site. But if it's something like chess.com or something I know about that I know is trustworthy, then I might check out your link and maybe even feature your game, and maybe you get to see your game analyzed. But hopefully you can learn from your games, or our games, our level games. Alright, so just yeah, again, give me feedback, tell me how I can get better, because man, I know this video can get a lot better, and hopefully the series will get better as it goes along, and as we continue analyzing our level games. So thank you, and until next time, I'm Jonathan Raspberry. See you later.